Perfect. Oh, that was so easy. I am super excited to be here with Cindy Roberston tonight, and she is an absolute darling client. And I am so blessed that she came to first start looking into her own health, and then for her two beautiful daughters and the journey that it has been, getting to see your two girls as well, Cindy. So I feel very blessed and very honored and excited that you wanted to just share a little bit about your health journey with us tonight. So, Cindy, I thought it's best before we talk about the girls' health to say, what made you even get interested in health? What was your journey towards health yourself first as the mum and woman and wife and everything else, not just mum?
Basically, it started with my skin. So I had quite bad skin. No, I had great skin as a teenager and even through my 20s. But when I kind of got to late 20s, early 30s, I started getting breakouts. And no matter what I'd done on top of my skin, I couldn't quite get to the bottom of it. So then after speaking to other people really, worked out that it's probably something more internal. So it all started there.
Isn't it kind of annoying though when it comes to our skin, right? Because we just want something to put on top. And I know you're working with the darling Jax, who would have been pushing, and Jax, who did an interview with us a few weeks ago, who probably was very adamant that it also had something to do with your internal health as well. But I know for clients that come with skin, it's like, what? You mean to say that I've got to look at the internal health? So for you, Jax, what did that mean for you?
I had to change everything. You know, like I think people think, oh, well, I'll just stop eating chocolate because chocolate gives me pimples, you know, and I think that's just a common of what everybody thinks. But mine was basically I had to start from the bottom and work up. Yeah, which was, you know, it was a big journey, but definitely worth it.
And did it feel overwhelming at any point? Like, what was the hard, like when you thought of, you know, like obviously you'd come with skin. Now you're learning that basically it's all your food. You've got to do all these different things. Did it feel too hard? Did it feel too overwhelming?
Not initially like the first steps, but learning it all was overwhelming. Like I always had so many questions when I probably should have just started a bit basic. Now that I look back, it actually wasn't that hard, but it felt like it was at the time. Yeah, and you just kind of learn as you go.
And so looking back, which I love to do, if you were starting again, so say you were starting again and you realized that there was a whole internal health journey that you're going to have to go on to do with your skin, what are a couple of things that you would say to Cindy back then, right at the beginning of her journey, and anyone else that's just realized that their skin's not just about putting something on top, but something internal as well? What would you say to anyone else that was feeling overwhelmed right at the beginning?
Just start off easy. The first things that I would do, and I even say this to friends when they're like, how do I start my skin? The first thing you need to do is cut out gluten and dairy. And until you've done that, you can't do anything.
But what would you say to somebody that was resistant to cutting out gluten and dairy? Like, what if that just feels too hard, too overwhelming? They don't know how to eat. They've got a family like you do? And for parents to say, but what will my children eat?
There's an alternative for everything nowadays. You know, it's not like 10 years ago where gluten bread tasted like cardboard, like gluten-free bread, sorry, tastes like cardboard. It's not like that now. Like my kids have no idea the difference. You know, they wouldn't have any idea. Anything that you can get that your kids like, you can now get. I mean, you can get gluten-free Cocoa Pops. You know, like you can get gluten-free everything. So it's actually not that hard. You've just got to find it.
And okay, so you tell everyone to go gluten-free and dairy-free. And when you did that, what did you notice in your skin? Like, did that change something straight away? Were you seeing immediate results, or was it more that you had to kind of do the slow, hard slog and then you saw results?
As far as my skin goes, the dairy was huge. So as soon as I dropped the dairy, my skin cleared up really quickly. The gluten, I don't know if it had much to do with my skin, but I noticed things that I wasn't looking for, if that makes sense. So I got results that I wasn't actually looking for.
So what did you notice? That's the bonus, right, with health. Like you come in wanting to get your skin fixed, but then you realize that all these symptoms that you're just putting up with, all these things that you just thought were normal, were not normal. So what were some of the side benefits? That's what I always like to talk to clients about, like the bonuses that you get. What were some of those that you noticed from giving up gluten?
Definitely less bloating. So there was no bloating. Congestion, like I always felt like I had hay fever, and I always just continuously took hay fever pills. And then I got rid of the gluten, and realized, hang on, maybe it wasn't hay fever. I was just congested. Little things like that.
And Cindy, that's such a good point to touch on, because a lot of people come to me saying that they've got sinus issues or congestion or any like types of like they get hay fever, like you were saying, and I'll like just smile sweetly to myself and be like, we'll see about that. Like, do they really need these antihistamines, or is it a food that they're eating? Is this going to be one of their bonuses that they're going to get along the health journey? And when I kind of say to clients, they look at me skeptically, like, no, I've been on these antihistamines for like forever. It's not going to be the food that's causing this. Otherwise, somebody would have told me this earlier in my journey. But for me, like, and I'll see this on clients' journeys all the time, where you will make changes and they'll get a new equilibrium in their body and their health will reach a new status or plateau or wherever it is. And then the hay fever might come back and I'll be like, oh, there's something else causing them inflammation. What else is going on here that's triggering this now? Because like you say, you shouldn't get the congestion. But Cindy, you've also touched on another really good point is bloating. Like, was that your norm? Like, what made you not even question? Like, is that just all you knew? Or when did that kind of come into focus for you?
Well, I always thought it was a weight issue. Like, I always thought, it was just because I was in my 30s, and that's what happens to people in their 30s. You get a bit of a pot belly. But I'd go on diets and things, and I'd lose weight everywhere else. But I just always had this belly. And I didn't have children then, so I didn't really have any reason for it. But it wasn't even just about how I looked. Like, I felt lighter, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And did you notice anything with your brain clarity or focus or anything? Did that change at all, giving up gluten and dairy?
Yeah, it definitely helped my sleep.
Oh yeah, your sleep.
Definitely. I had huge sleep problems, and I always put that down to stress or studying, or there was always an excuse.
Isn't it so funny though, Cindy, how we justify all these symptoms in our body? Because it would never be as simple as food, right? Like, what would diet be playing into all of these things?
Yeah. And like, you don't really believe it until you do it.
I totally agree with you. And that's like what I said to clients in their first session. I'm like, just do it. Try it. If you give it a go for a few weeks and you really seriously tell me you've seen no change in any of your symptoms, just stop. But if you get on board and you actually go all in, you actually see a difference to your symptoms. So then, Cindy, what happened next in your health journey? So you got out the gluten, you got out the dairy, your skin started to improve, you started to see your congestion go, your bloating go. What happened for you next?
I mean, there was weight loss. Not that I was never a large person, but I always had weight, and like most females, I guess, had weight in certain places that you didn't want. And that just, I've always been into exercise, and that just started dropping off without me even really noticing.
It's amazing, eh? Such one of those bonuses, right? You just wanted your skin better, and look at the bonuses you were getting already. And I guess that goes back to like, as much as because a lot of clients come in obviously wanting weight loss, and when I talk about it being inflammation, it can sound so disheartening and so almost cruel, but you just saw it. You got rid of the first causing inflammation, and the weight loss was a byproduct, like a happy byproduct, which is really awesome. So then, Cindy, if you didn't have kids at that time, then what happened? When did little number one come along?
So when I had Emmy, it would have been at the very beginning of my health journey. And it was probably after, she would have been about 4 months when I really started getting into it. And then I just really dug deep, and I came to see you, and we just started making really big changes. And then that led on to Emmy's house, because I'm a mum that if I don't eat it, then my kids don't eat it. But she started getting a really bad cough, like a really unusual cough that we just couldn't get rid of. So we took her to doctor's appointments and specialists and hospitals, and they just kept wanting to put cameras down her throat and do all this stuff that was, the thought of it, I was not, just not interested at all. And then I thought, well, if I see Shelley, she can see Shelley. So we brought her along to you, and it was with her, it was gluten. She also was getting really bad rash on her face, and that was dairy. So we didn't give her much gluten, but we probably gave her more than we should have, and that was causing the cough. So as soon as we got rid of that.
And Cindy, like, in all honesty, and I'm not going to be offended at all, did you really think that we were going to be able to get rid of her cough with food initially? Like when you first came to see me, you had with not like when you first came to see me with Emmy, you had tried everything, right? Like in terms of what the medical world had given you, and your poor little darling, like she's such a beautiful soul, it was just coughing, like it was just constant for the poor thing, like it was exhausting for her because there was nothing wrong apparently, but yet there was nothing that could be done for this cough. And she was so young.
Yeah. No, I didn't. Like, it was definitely a last resort thing. Like, you know, I wasn't the last resort was going to be the camera. But I was going to try everything before that. I didn't not believe it, but I thought it was pretty far fetched that protein like gluten could cause such a bad cough. Yeah.
And what about, because I vividly remember that first appointment because Doug was there as well, your husband. What did he think about all of this? Like, how on board was he with his daughter kind of seeing this natural alternative and being told that you as a family could no longer eat gluten and dairy because that was truly going to cure his daughter's cough that she'd had for a long time and nothing was curing it?
I mean, he was at the point where he was willing to try anything, but he probably didn't believe it much either.
I know. I can picture both of you, and you were so beautiful and sincere. It was like, okay, if she tells us that that's going to get rid of the cough, I guess we'll give it a go and we'll see what's going to happen, right? So as a mum then, so you left the appointment that was a little bit unorthodox, right, with me, because we don't just, like, when it comes to children, we have some fun, right? Like, Amy and I really had a good time in that appointment. Like, as two parents that didn't really know me, especially Doug, he must have just been like, what is this lady on? Like, she is crazy. But then what did you think in terms of how are you going to implement this with Emmy, with your beautiful young daughter? Like, how are you going to do, like, what went through your head as a mom or as a family?
Well, we were quite lucky that she was so young, so she didn't really notice the difference in the change of food. But it was hard with things like daycare. That was my first thing. I'm like, she goes to daycare. They have a chef there. They cook for her. Like, how's that going to work? So the first thing I done was jotted down an email to the manager and said, look, this is the situation. Can you get on board? And they were awesome. They did. You know, they'd go and do separate shopping for her. And I mean, most daycares will do that. You know, you get kids with nut allergies or all sorts of stuff. So that definitely put my mind at ease. But it wasn't too hard switching over the food. It definitely wasn't because she was young. So that was the most important part, was getting to it while she was so young.
And was there a favorite food that Emmy had that she was really missed, or was there anything that she really did notice?
Not having milk. Like, that was hard because she was still having bottles of milk before bed. And it was heartbreaking when she would beg me, can I please just have one little bit of milk? And trying to explain to a 2-year-old, no, you can't have milk because it's giving you a rash. Like, she didn't get it. But luckily she's a pretty easygoing kid. And we just said, look, if you try it for X amount of time, then we'll definitely, we definitely do have some at the end of it. It was like a little reward. But then she would notice, because she got to the age where she started noticing stuff. So she would have a glass of normal milk and then she'd wake up the next morning with a rash. So we'd just explain it that way.
And so you really empowered her, where as a little girl, like, because people think, parents can often think that their children are too young or they won't be able to do it or they won't be able to explain it. Emmy began to notice it in her body, right? Like, because she'd gotten rid of the rash, she'd gotten rid of the pain and the inflammation. She didn't want it. Like, the milk suddenly wasn't worth it, right?
Yeah. And there's alternatives. I mean, yeah, she has like almond milk or oat milk now. And she loves it. She doesn't even notice the difference. It's just her milk.
Does she ask you for normal dairy milk now? So she's totally forgotten, basically.
Yeah.
What happens, because she's 5 now, what happens when she goes to school or she goes to friends' houses? Like, can she explain why she's not having dairy or having dairy, or do you explain it to the parents, or what happens there?
She definitely does. So she'll ask, does this have gluten in it? And then she'll say, we need to check with mummy. But I mean, all of our close friends, they know, and they'll always check with me. You know, we're really lucky. Like, we even have friends at birthday parties that will put on special food for her. But she's at this stage in her journey where it doesn't matter if she has a tiny bit of gluten or dairy. More so gluten, it's not as okay. Dairy does affect her a bit more. But she will notice it. So if she went to a party and she did have gluten, the next day she'll say to me, oh, mummy, my cough's back. And it is back. It's actually that quick.
Wow. So does it ever upset you as the mum or Amy as the daughter that this is her life for the foreseeable future? That she can't have a lot of dairy and gluten, or it just doesn't even bother you because of the symptoms in her body?
It doesn't bother me so much because I know that I'm helping her, and I hope that when she's old enough to understand, she'll thank me for it. It doesn't bother her at all because everything she likes, she can get gluten free or dairy free. And like I said, she can have the odd treat every now and then. But there's literally nothing that she likes to eat that we can't find an alternative for. And,
Isn't that
and there's so many recipes I can make as well.
and that's the other thing, Cindy, that I wanted to bring up because you really got on board with my Emmy, I was about to call her Marley, sorry. Emmy, your other daughter. I was like, Marley's not cooking yet. Emmy, you bake and cook together, like from quite a young age. You guys had these little, like your little, I guess, dates for want of a better word, or just afternoons when you weren't at work and she wasn't in daycare. You would spend a lot of time in the kitchen together baking different things. Am I right?
Yeah, and trying out different recipes and getting excited when they're yummy and when they work. So just getting her part of it.
And does she still like helping cook with you now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's always asking how to cook dinner and everything now. She loves it.
Wow, so she's from a very young age now developed a real enjoyment and fun with food as well, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. And so then, Cindy, what happened next? Because obviously you had one daughter, and then did your health change, or did you look at your health differently when you were going to get pregnant again, or as you were pregnant?
Yeah, definitely, because I had quite bad morning sickness with Emmy, and I didn't want to go through that again. And Emmy also had colic, really bad colic as a baby. But when we decided that we would have another baby, I wanted to get really like on top of that before even trying to see if there was things I could do to avoid any of that. Which obviously there was plenty of stuff with your help.
So what was your understanding then of the things that you could implement to make your pregnancy the second time more smoother or just more enjoyable so you didn't have to have those symptoms? Like you're obviously witness to the fact that you can have a pregnancy symptom free.
It was just eating all the stuff that we're eating, just continuously doing what I was doing, not giving in too much to those pregnancy cravings. And then a few supplements on the way.
And so did you, with your second pregnancy with Miley, did you get morning sickness? Really? Like as extreme as you did?
No, like I got a tiny bit of nausea, but it was definitely manageable with like the vagal oils and stuff like that. Yeah, and it was during lockdown, so it was a hard time.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially for you as a business owner, that would have been a really hard time.
Yeah.
So was your pregnancy like living proof that basically the healthier you are, the healthier you go into your pregnancy, just makes the whole pregnancy much easier, much more enjoyable, for want of a better word?
Definitely, yeah. And especially more enjoyable because obviously pregnancies are so different when you're having your first baby and then you're pregnant and you've got a child. So yeah, definitely, because you need more energy, especially when you've got another child and still working. So no, definitely, yeah.
And did you find that you had enough energy during that second pregnancy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it? And didn't your sleep also improve again?
So when I was pregnant was when I finally got on top of my sleep. And it was probably in my third trimester when you're not meant to be able to sleep, when I started actually being able to go to sleep without the help of anything, any kind of supplement, any kind of magic trick. And I've literally since then not had an issue sleeping ever since.
Wow, Cindy. And along the way, what were some of the magic tricks that you did do?
The feet up on the wall.
You say that one. I was like, please tell the feet up on the wall one.
So much meditation and listening to podcasts. You name it, I tried it. There's nothing I didn't try.
And then all of a sudden it just clicked into place.
Literally overnight.
Like,
one day I fell asleep.
And isn't it like we take it for granted? Like if you sleep really well, if you're listening to this and you sleep really, really well, you take it for granted that anybody could just not sleep well. And then once you start sleeping well, you also forget what it was like me being somebody that didn't sleep well. You forget what it was like life when you didn't sleep well and how miserable that is. Like that whole pain of going to bed and being like, am I going to sleep tonight? Like, am I actually going to get a full night's sleep?
Yeah.
And so, Cindy, for you now, as a mum of 2 young girls that are full of energy and totally beautiful, what is your health like now?
Good, like the best it's ever been.
Do you almost take it for granted? Like, do those memories of like the skin and the bloating just feel like a whole nother lifetime ago?
Yeah. The only thing I think is, oh, like everything, why didn't I do it earlier? You know, like, why didn't I do this in my 20s? Why did I wait until my 30s to do it?
What do you think stopped you? What were the thoughts going through your head? Or was it just that you had no awareness? You didn't even know it existed? Like, what do you think stopped you looking back doing it in your 20s?
Definitely the knowledge. Like, I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't know. I knew that there was always different places I could go for help, but it's also money. You know, like how much was it going to cost me? You know, in my 20s, I didn't have extra money to pay for that sort of stuff. So that was definitely, if someone had said to me, go and see this person. But when I say it's not about spending the money, it's spending it and not knowing if it's going to work.
Yeah. Because we all have money. Like in our 20s, we find money for.
Oh, you'd find it. Yeah. But where do you want to spend it?
Yeah. And knowing. And I think the key word there you say is, and even in our 30s or 40s or 50s, we're spending the money initially. And do we know it's going to work? Like, when it's like, what is the guarantee? Is there a guarantee? We're going to have to put in all this effort. And what reward are we necessarily going to get?
Yeah.
I think that's and also, do you think, and you can say this now in terms of implementing it, but do you think there's a fear around it's going to be really hard? Like where it's going to be a big commitment or we're going to have to give up a lot of things?
Oh, definitely. Like, if I speak to people about it, and I mean, I definitely don't try to push it on people, each their own. But if I do get a lot of people asking me, and they immediately, I don't want to give up dairy, I don't want to give up gluten, and that's always the main thing. And I'm like, why not? It's no different. Everything tastes the same. You're not giving up flavor.
I totally agree. And plus, do you find it harder now as a family of 4? Do you actually find it hard to live this way?
No.
And is your husband, Doug, is he really on board and supportive with it as well? Like, is he what you do in your own house? Like, I don't like he might eat slightly differently things at lunchtime or whatever. But what happens in your house, he's fully on board. Like for the girls and for your health, he's fully supportive.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
you've seen the difference, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing?
He always says to me, "What crazy food are you cooking up now?"
And I bet you he loves it because he's so lucky to have you cooking it all up. So he's probably very appreciative.
Yes, he is.
Cindy, what do you think, other than giving up gluten and dairy, but what's something else that you've learned along the health journey that you wish that you'd known earlier?
How good you could feel.
I think that's
or how good you should feel.
Should
your feeling probably isn't normal.
Yeah. And also, do you now look on and listen to conversations and just realize how much like symptoms are talked about as normal? Like people aren't questioning these things. So you don't know what you don't know. And even though you talk about not wanting to push it on people, and I never want to push it on my friends either, but at least when they know that like there's somebody else, like even if we don't push it on them, hearing that you don't have to live like that, like, or just put up with those symptoms. A lot of us we've never even been told that message. Like, we don't even know that it's not normal because everyone's talking about it like it is normal. So there's such a minority of people going, hey, actually, you don't have to be tired. You don't have to not sleep. You don't have to have this bloating or this extra weight. Like, you can actually get rid of it.
The biggest one I hear floating around is the word anxiety. That's the biggest one that you hear, and anxiety and headaches, actually. And I think people just think that it's just normal. Oh, I've just got headaches because I probably need glasses, or, you know, I was born with anxiety and it's just something that I have to deal with pills, you know, but it's you're not, and you don't need to.
Really, Cindy? Are those the 2 biggest ones that you hear in your world?
Yeah.
Really? And people put headaches down to glass, like, is it is that aging, or young people as well as saying that they've got headaches and they need glasses?
Just a variety of people. It might be I'm just tired, you know, I just work too hard. Yeah. I mean, I was one of them. I always had headaches. I always had migraines.
See? And you know what's really funny, Cindy, is it's just so many of those symptoms that you just lose along the way, and then you forget that you even had them. Like, I used to have headaches in my teenage years too. And it literally wasn't until a few months ago I was talking to a younger client. She was 14. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know what? I actually had headaches too. Like I totally forgotten that it was even a part of my health, like how bad they were. And it was a part of my health journey. So we just move on and we realize, and like since then I haven't had a single headache, and I'd hate to know how bad it feels to have a bad headache, because it's awful. It's crippling.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, especially migraines.
Oh, that's just exactly. Cindy, and for any parents out there thinking it's too hard, what's your piece of advice for them to start? And is it too early to start with a child? Like how, obviously, how young is too young?
No, no. I mean, I've got a 10-month, Marley, and she has never had any gluten. She's had minimal dairy. She doesn't know the difference. It's definitely no. You should start from day one. They'll thank you forever, yeah. And it's not hard.
Yeah, and like you say, it's workable. Like parties, because a lot of parents will say, well, what about the children at parties, and how they're going to be deprived, and then they're going to rebel against me, and all of these types of things. But for Marley, for example, not Marley, Emmy, you've given Emmy like the like gift of health for the rest of her life, like forevermore. If she gets a symptom, she's going to be able to associate it to something and make the choice, because you've also let her from a young age make the choice. Where it's like, yes, you can have dairy, but when you wake up with a rash, you know why you've woken up with the rash.
Yeah. Yeah. And, she doesn't, like I said, she doesn't completely miss out. She's definitely not a deprived child. And at parties, if that's the only option, she does have it. But yeah, like I said, then she gets a cough and she tells me.
Which isn't that the best gift that you can give her, really? And with my clients, like adult clients like you, it's not about being perfect. It's not about removing everything, but it's learning why you've got a symptom. Like these symptoms don't just happen to us. We have made a decision, whether it's conscious or unconscious decision, and that is the gift of health. That's the gift with your girls. Like they can learn to make those decisions from a young age. We're sure you can have the dairy, but if you get a rash, you know why you got the rash. Is it worth the rash? Which is just such an amazing gift and makes us so empowered for our own health, rather than like, with you with your skin, it just happening to you.
Yeah, definitely.
It's so cool, Cindy. And thank you so much for sharing this with you. I hope I haven't asked you any too hard questions.
No.
I just really wanted, because I just know how passionate you are about it, how you've transformed your daughters' lives with it, how you've put health and nutrition into so many different areas of your lives. But I just wanted you to be a little beam of hope to other parents and families where they feel like it's too hard, because you're a busy working mom. You've got 2 children. You've got a husband that works. Like, it's not like you're at home preparing meals all day, stuck in the kitchen. Like, you live a very active, busy life. And you've made it work. You've made it easy. You've made the girls food that they enjoy. Your husband enjoys them. Like, you all enjoy it, which is really that was the hope that I wanted you to be able to give everyone else, because we just get told all the time, it's too hard. It's going to be miserable. My family's going to hate it. Another quick thing though, Cindy, is the other objection that I'd probably hear from young families is it's too expensive. Like the food is too expensive.
No, well, no. I mean, a lot of it you can make. Like, I won't lie, if you want to go and buy a gluten-free cake, for example, that can be pricey. But when you're baking it, it's no different than baking any other cake.
Totally agree with you. Cindy, thank you so much for giving up your precious time on a Sunday night. I am super, super grateful, and I think everyone else will be grateful too. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Cindy.
Bye.